What's shakin', cocktail fans? I'm Modern Bar Cart CEO Eric Kozlik. It's my job to hit the road and track down the best and brightest minds in the spirits and cocktail world so that I can share their secrets with you. This time around, I catch up in the test kitchen with Shrub founder Charlie Berkinshaw. He and I are working on a series of videos right now about different types of acids in the cocktail world. So on this episode of the podcast, you get to hear all about citric and acetic acid. We dive deep, but somehow we manage to have a little fun along the way as well. Check it out. Charlie, welcome back to the podcast.
Thanks. Happy to be here.
So before we get started here talking about different types of acids, why don't you just step back and give our listeners a little 411 on what's happening with Shrub, because obviously we carry your product on our site. We've got people purchasing those bad boys, getting them delivered right to their doorstep. But you know, there's been a lot going on with your company. You've got some cool things going on. So why don't you tell us about maybe some of the travels you've been doing, some of the stuff that's exciting on your end?
Yeah, it's been fun, and obviously we're here talking about acid. Shrubs are made with, in our case, organic apple cider vinegar, which is a form of acetic acid. So acids have always been something I've been really excited about. So recently we just got back from Germany, actually, from Berlin, the Bar Convent show in Europe out there, and it was incredible. Kind of like we've done trade shows before, but this was almost like a World's Fair where you would see, I mean, some booths had acrobats like hanging from the ceiling like above their booth. So it was really awesome. It felt very sort of curated and really fun to just kind of check out the scene in Europe. It was sort of our first entry into sort of the international market, and so super fun. And then we also we've been kind of pushing our things on the distribution end. So in DC, Maryland, Delaware, we're working with Bacchus Distribution, so bars and restaurants locally can find our products through them. And then recently picked up a distributor in Connecticut called Bruscum Barton, and so they'll be doing all of our on-premise and off-premise accounts up there.
Nice. In the great state of Connecticut. Don't get me started on that state. No offense, Connecticut listeners, but kind of offense. That's great that you're kind of expanding your footprint, traveling a lot. You also launched the Ginger Lime Shrub, which I think is the newest member of the family, right?
That is the newest member, yeah. And it's been a huge success so far. So, yes, thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Available now at modernbarcart.com. So happy to be here. And this is a situation where you and I were kind of in the same space together. We're doing cocktail things. We're thinking about cocktail things. And our customers are people who are deeply concerned with using our stuff in cocktails and teaching, their perhaps retail customers or their like bartender customers how to do things better. And so the purpose of this little project that we're putting together, this is like the first step on an educational, you might call it resource, you might call it a product, but basically it's going to be a collection of videos. Just like the podcast here is branching a little bit more into the video space. We're also doubling down on this and trying to make some educational videos available to folks, whether in the industry or just awesome home enthusiasts, that break down the bones of a specific topic, right? Is that fair to say?
Yeah, and right, as you said, not just with audio or even like a book, but something visual that people can kind of go back to and
just push that little sideways triangle and someone starts talking at you. So we're calling this right now Drink Anatomy. We've got the URL, got the Instagram handle, and we're kind of slow rolling out this process here. So what this 2-part episode is going to be based on is it's going to kind of walk you through the first 4 videos that we're doing. And there will be also video associated with this podcast episode. So you can head over to the show notes page on modernbarcart.com/podcast. And you can actually see we've got a few different items arrayed before us. And we're going to use these little creations that we've made to talk about some of the cocktails that we're making in these videos. Can you talk a little bit about how we decided to organize this first 4 video sequence?
Yeah, so, I mean, for me, I have been thinking about doing a sort of class. Really, there was actually a TV series that I saw on heat, salt.
It's Salt, Fat, Acid, Heat by Samin Nosrat.
Yes, exactly. And then sort of right around the same time, Derek Brown's book came out that was sort of the sugar spirits,
water bitters.
Yep. But I thought it would be really fun to kind of create sort of a cocktail documentary almost of the different components that go into a cocktail or a non-alcoholic drink, and really kind of do a deep dive, but not so not so nerdy, but that's still somewhat approachable, almost in sort of a cocktail class format.
Right.
And then with everything you're doing over at the Modern Bar Cart and on the podcast, I thought, wow, this could be a really cool kind of collaboration. That kind of brings together sort of the home bartender community with kind of a YouTube video series, and and just kind of take it from there and sort of explore that.
Yeah, I like what you're saying too, because okay, obviously you and I are a little bit better versed on a lot of these topics than some home bartenders may tend to be, and I guess in that respect it makes us, you wouldn't call us experts, even though I kind of raise an eyebrow at that term, even several years into running this business. But the cool thing I think about the level that we're approaching these granular videos is that yes, we're very granular in the sense that we're talking in a given video about a very specific acid. We're talking about citric acid, for example, or acetic, or malic, or lactic acid. So in that sense, it's very zoomed in and kind of technical, but the cool thing is that you and I don't have necessarily super sciencey backgrounds. So when we're sitting down to do the research for this, we're coming at it with the same sort of knowledge that any one of our listeners or viewers would have. So when we go through the process of making this video and editing it and selecting for the facts that we want to include, we're doing it with the end user in mind. And I think we're hitting at that perfect level of just nerdy enough, but not dry, if that makes sense.
Yeah, or just totally unattainable, right?
Right, yeah, or some
you need this type of equipment to make this, so
right.
Sorry, you don't have one. Oh well.
Right. So and we're referencing Liquid Intelligence, and that's a book where there's a lot of very specialized equipment that you could use, but I think because we're passing this information through the filter of us and what we know about home bartending as people who do a lot of it, I think that makes this level that we're approaching at very resonant with people, and hopefully when the videos come out, super attractive, super interesting and useful. That's at the end of the day, we want people to use this stuff.
Yeah, for sure.
So as we mentioned, we've got these 4 videos. So what we're going to do in this 2-part episode is we're going to split it up 2 by 2. We're going to start in this episode by talking about citric acid and acetic acid, which are they're very different, but they're kind of the 2 most important or most often encountered acids in the cocktail world. And then in the next episode, we're going to talk about malic acid and lactic acid, which are maybe a little bit less common, but I think are in some ways kind of funky and really interesting.
Yeah.
So do you want to kick us off and talk a little bit about citric acid and just kind of give folks a high-level overview of some of the things we talk about in that video?
Yeah, sure. So, and most of you are, excuse me, probably familiar with citric acid. Of all the acids we've mentioned, you have most definitely encountered citric acid. As the name would imply, it comes from citrus, lemons, limes, oranges, grapefruit, etc. And, you know, if you think about cocktails in general, the sour cocktail family, so whether it is a daiquiri or a whiskey sour or a margarita
sidecar,
or sidecar,
margarita,
yeah,
what have you.
The vodka version of a kamikaze.
Oh, yes. Let's just
back
take it
to those days, right?
Let's just take it and make it less interesting.
Yeah. Anyway, so funny thing about so citric acid comes from citrus. Was discovered, or sorry, not discovered, but isolated back in the late 1700s by a pharmaceutical chemist named Carl Scheele, who essentially just crystallized it from lemon juice. And just kind of a fun fact about this guy, known as Hard Luck Scheele. Apparently, he also discovered a few other elements, but others published kind of their findings before him, so he didn't get credit. Discovered oxygen, hydrogen, etc. So
close, but
it's kind of weird.
Yeah, and he's also responsible for like dried lemon juice,
apparently,
and oxygen.
Yeah, kind of an interesting resume, right?
Yeah. Well, and the cool thing, we were talking about this off air, and one of the things I really like about this guy and the type of science that was going on in this period between like the year 1500 and the year like 1800 or 1850 is that the types of experiments that went on were like Francis Bacon like trying to like figure out when food goes bad and inadvertently gives himself pneumonia and dies.
Yeah. Well, what's funny actually is that this guy actually he died at the age of 43 from mercury poisoning. And you know, in his experiments constantly exposed to, you know, mercury obviously, but also lead and arsenic. And apparently he would smell and taste all of the new substances he discovered.
Oh God.
And I guess as a result, it may have cost him his life, but he got a few papers out of it.
They should call him like Canary Scheele. This guy was like the canary in the coal mine for all of us.
Yeah. So anyway, back to cocktails.
That works. No, Carl Canary Scheele. That's perfect.
There you go.
All right, back to cocktails.
So one thing about citric acid, so it's a non-volatile acid, which means it doesn't give off an aroma. And we'll dig into this a little more when we talk about acetic acid.
Yep.
Did you?
Oh, let's talk about it now.
Okay.
So there are certain terms that we're going to use or that you may encounter if you decide to do like deep dives on some of these compounds that we cover in the Drink Anatomy series. And these terms might sound kind of sciencey. So one thing I want to be really careful to define right now is that when we're talking about volatility, we're referring to it in a very specific sense. So these acids may or may not be volatile in other ways, but when you and I say volatile, we're talking about flavor and aroma. And so a volatile acid, for our purposes here today, is one that gives off aroma molecules. So if you can picture the acid sitting there in perhaps a drinking vessel, you can kind of visualize it like giving off molecules of aroma, and the other non-volatile acids are not doing that. So if you smell a non-volatile acid, you might get the sense that you're smelling something that's not air, but you're certainly not going to pick up like a distinct aroma print, if that makes sense. Whereas with acetic acid, like you mentioned, this is a particularly volatile acid in the aroma sense. You get that vinegar stank.
Yeah, I'm very familiar with that.
Yes.
Obviously.